Hello and welcome to a quick video about how to get more data out of your Search Console. While it's not as upfront about it as GA4 or Universal Analytics, and Search Console absolutely does sample / have cardinality. You miss a whole bunch of data, and particularly if you have a large website, you are not going to be getting anywhere close to all of your data, and you can get a good chunk of that back. You are not going to get all of it, but you can get a good chunk of it, and we're going to talk through how to do that. This is not going to be the most technical video. We're not going to dive into gobs and gobs of code or anything in here. We're just going to be talking about sort of a top level process about how does the API work and what are the things that you can do with it to go about getting more data out of it. If you are technical, this is probably enough to get started with. You can just probably go off and get running here. If you're not particularly technical, you're probably going to need to take this to a tech team to help kind of talk through how this works and how they can get more out of it. And if you would like somebody to do that for you, please get in touch with us. This is exactly what we do. We help SEO teams and marketing teams get more data out of these data sources, building data warehouses and things like this. This is the kind of stuff we do for businesses every single day. So get in touch with us. So yeah, let's jump in. Right, so an example about Search Console sampling. How does it work? What you get with Search Console is you get 50,000 rows of data per day per property. So we've got an example site here. We've downloaded some data and we've got our normal columns that we expect to see from Search Console. We've got query, so we rank for t-shirt, green t-shirt, men t-shirt. We rank for all of those with our t-shirt page in the United States on the desktop, and these are the amount of clicks that we get for each of those queries. And when you get 50,000 rows of this data for all the different queries, for all the different pages, countries, every kind of possible combination there. As soon as you get past 50,000 rows here, and these are ordered by the number of clicks. That's the also crucial point here. So the more clicks you have, it's going to be at the top. We're always going to get data for our biggest keywords. But when we start getting to that long tail, and a lot of properties is a long tail, as soon as we get below 50,000 rows, as soon as we get there, all of this data is just gone. It just becomes other. Functionally, we'd call this cardinality in Google Analytics terms. So as soon as we get below there, we start losing our data. And that's what we're trying to minimize. That's the goal of here. So let's now go and look at what does this look like if we do get more data. Okay, we're hopped over to Looker Studio now, and here we've got a piped out customer, and we're going to compare them across a couple of these different axes. So firstly, we're just looking at when we're going to use the method that we're going to talk through in this video, and we can see the number of queries for their website is about 800,000 distinct queries for March 2024. When we connect to do the same exact thing with the native connection with Looker Studio, we're getting only 236 queries, 36,000 queries. So we're losing about 4 times the number of query data here. When we pop over here, we can also see that we're also having problems with just clicks being lost. So in this case, this is not queries. In this case, what we've done is we've just filtered to a single page to this customer's website here, and just traffic to desktop from that single page. We can see that when we've done our extended method of downloading all the data, we're getting 1,259 clicks for March 2024. When we use the default connector, we're getting 794 clicks. Again, that data does exist, but it's all being rolled up into this cardinality, into that lost other data. So that's where that's going. This is just another way of visualizing this. In this case, we're looking at it over time. So what we're showing here is this yellow chunk. These are queries where we have all of our dimensions, right? We get we know what query they're searching for, what page landed, what country they came from. That's this query here, this orange chunk. And then we've got this other. So this is a bit where we don't get the full list of dimensions. We don't get, for example, specifically, we don't get the queries they're searching for. And as you can see in this case, for certain traffics, for larger websites, for websites which have more long tail traffic, this is a lot of the traffic here. And our goal here is to reduce this. So our goal is to increase this number of queries. And then the other goal here is to increase, even if we can't get the queries, we can see in this case, on a page level, we've still managed to increase the accuracy of where that traffic is coming from. And that's particularly valuable for some other use cases. We're going to talk about that in another video. But if you're trying to do things like join this with your GA4 or your AdWords data, that's particularly valuable data to have. So as we can see, we get loads more data if we download the data in the right way from the API. What is the right way and how do we go about doing that? We're now going to pop back and we're going to talk through conceptually just how do you do this. For this chunk, and don't get me wrong, this is absolutely a more complicated task. You're probably going to need some programming knowledge here. You can certainly kind of wing your way through it, but we're absolutely out of the easy sort of, you can just, roll this in Looker Studio by just clicking around with a couple of buttons. This is going to require, some sort of technical background here, or a lot of beating your head against ChatGPT to try and get it to do what you want. I would probably recommend someone with a technical background, perhaps taking this to your tech team. If you don't fancy taking this to a tech team, this is a good point to mention. You can, of course, come to us and we can do this for you. This sort of data warehousing and loading all of your search console, but all of your other sort of SEO data sources. This is exactly the stuff that we deal with every single day. And so if you would like some help with this, please just get in touch. We do this all of the time. Okay, so let's next go and look at, is this a problem for you? How do you tell? Because again, a lot of websites are small enough that you're just never going to run into this. What's the quickest way to validate that? Firstly, what we're going to do is we're going to hop over and we're going to register some Search Console properties. So we're going to pop over into Search Console. We're going to hit this drop down arrow here and we're going to add properties over at the bottom. I'm not going to click this right now because I don't want to expose any data. You're then going to come over to here and you're going to register a subfolder. If you've already registered one, fantastic. We can just use that for our comparison. If you haven't already registered one, then I would recommend doing this for, leaving it for a day or two because it's going to take a couple of days to just fill in with that data. Once we've gone ahead and registered the subfolder, we're then going to head back to Looker Studio. Back in Looker Studio, we're then going to go ahead and add both of these Search Console properties to a report. So we've got here our Green Zebra site and our Green Zebra subfolder. This is a hypothetical e-commerce site that we're using for the purposes of this example. And we've registered, let's actually use the consistent labeling that we've used for this. We're using products. So we've registered our product subfolder and just the base. We then go ahead and add this in here. And for each table, we're then going to add a distinct count of the number of queries. So we're going to take query from over here, put it into our metrics, and set this up with a distinct count. Then I've done that with both this and the subfolder. And on this first one, for the whole property, I've gone ahead and added the filter to filter this specifically to this product subfolder. Then we're just going to compare the number of unique queries. So over here, we can see the number of unique queries for March 2024 is 198, with just the top level property filtered to the subfolder. And when we register the specific subfolder, we're seeing 12,000 keywords. Clearly, in this case, we are losing some data to cardinality, and this is the quickest way to just discover if this is happening for your website. So if this isn't happening for you, fantastic. The rest of this video is not relevant to you. You can move on and be happy in the fact that you already have all of the data and you can come back to this a lot later on. Hopefully when your site has grown and you're really, doing great. For those of you who are running to this, let's now talk through how you go and get all of that data out. This part is absolutely more technical. This is going to require some technical background, as you mentioned, but we're going to talk through what you practically can do and how you go about doing this now. Okay, so at this point, we're then going to go and register all of them, as many subfolders as we can. If we have subfolders that drive traffic, we're going to go and register them now. These subfolders won't backfill traffic, so if you have already registered them, fantastic. If you haven't, please go ahead and register them now. Even if you take nothing away from this video and you're not ready to go through the process that we're about to describe, go register these subfolders now. They'll start collecting traffic. And then when you are ready to go through this process, you'll have these ready to go. So go ahead, register these subfolders now, and you'll be set up for the future. Once you've registered these subfolders, we are then going to take them and we're going to go and use probably Python, but some sort of programming language to download our data day by day. As if you remember, our limit is day by day per property. So we've registered some more properties. We're going to go download those properties day by day. There are a bunch of good libraries out here, both the Google Search Console API and this one, which was a little bit more fully fledged, the Google Search Console. Either of these are fine. Either way, just have a quick Google around. You will need someone with a technical background, as I mentioned. But if you have that background, just Google around. The API is not particularly complicated, and there are plenty of libraries that will do it. Once you've got that, you then want to go ahead and download the data. We come down to here, and we zoom out a little bit. We're going to take each of these subfolders, and we're going to download the data each day. So we've got 2023, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each day, we're going to go download the data for each of those subfolders. So we'll go download the data for our base profile. We will then filter away anything that's contained within the category. We'll download that ourselves and fill it in. And then we'll do that for each of those subfolders. So now our API is built up day by day, combining each of these subfolders together. That's going to get us notably more data, but we can still do better in reducing that cardinality. Right, so let's talk through an example for cardinality. In this case, these numbers that I'm about to talk through here are a bit small. This is just for the purposes of keeping this example clear and easy for you guys to walk through and understand. So we've got a hypothetical product and we say each day we get 2,000 clicks. This is 100% of our clicks, and for that we get 2 dimensions, this country plus device here. That's the, you're always going, Search Console is always going to give you all of the clicks that your site gets if you only ever ask for these 2 dimensions. However, if we ask for all of our dimensions, if we ask for query and page and country and device, we're only going to get like 1,000 or so clicks for this. We're going to get far less data. So that's where we want to go and fill in. We then want to take, by entering in and asking for different combinations of these dimensions, by looking into the page and country and device for this, we can get this other chunk of data. So we're not going to get query for this. There's only the no queries that you can get from it. You can never get more than that in terms of queries. The only way to add more queries is adding more subfolders. But we can fill in this other gap here and get other dimensions, so we can get the page and the country and the device. This is really valuable here. One, because this is just going to give us a little bit more information here to fill in. It's going to make our numbers a little bit more accurate. It's going to give us a bit more information. Page is still valuable, particularly if you're relying more on your Search Console to give you just some more sort of base site analytics data. Secondly, if you happen to be joining with GA4 with AdWords, we have more information about that in another video, but this is particularly valuable there in terms of making this true and giving you accurate estimations. So if you're trying to do things like get revenue estimates per keyword, getting this additional block of data here is super valuable. It's just going to make those calculations so much more accurate. And then if your site is really big, you will sometimes have this extra block here. Typically, you'll just be able, this will be almost nothing. And, this blue chunk here will fill up everything else. And that will be almost 100% of your traffic. But sometimes if your site is very big, you can't get everything here, and you'll have this final sort of set that you'll only ever be able to get country and device for. But yes, so that's broadly how this is then going to pick up. That's how the cardinality is going to work. So knowing that, how does that change how we go back to our API? We're then going to hop back to our API. This is how we were downloading it previously, right? We were downloading for each property. We're now going to download for each property with multiple combinations of dimensions. And we're going to stitch those together for all of our subfolders. We're also, while we do this, we're just going to bear in mind that these subfolders might only come into existence at certain points in time. So it might be that before this point, we don't have this subfolder because we only registered it on the 3rd, in which case, in this case, we're going to have to rely on this to fill up this gap here. So we're going to then go through this process where we're going to add in the cardinality for each of these subfolders and register all of that in. Once we've gone ahead and we've done all of that and we've downloaded all of that data, at this point, we really have now got the maximum possible data that we can get out of Search Console. For this example here, I'm just going to show you BigQuery. This is our example data that we have over at Piped Out. Here we've taken someone's data and we've taken, in this case, this is an example, anonymized fake e-commerce website, but we've taken all this data and we've downloaded it into BigQuery. Often I would recommend BigQuery for Google marketing data. This is because Google have made it as easy as possible to get it into BigQuery. It's quite hard to get it into somewhere else. There's a lot of data that you literally cannot get. For example, your GA4 raw data. You can't get that natively into anything other than BigQuery. So you have to use BigQuery, at which point I would recommend putting at least all of your raws into here, and then you can, of course, mirror it over to Azure or Redshift, wherever you might be. But yeah, so we're going to go download all of our sort of marketing data over into here, all of our Search Console data that we've just downloaded through that process. We've stored it day by day into partitions, and over here we can see that now, for example, we've got this query other, where we filled in some of that cardinality here, and we've got all of our data ready to go. At this point, you'll now be able to plug this straight into Looker Studio, Tableau, whatever you might be working with, and you've got all that data ready to be joined with GA4, whatever you might want to do with it. That is the top level conceptual process of how we go about getting all of the maximum amount of data out of our Search Console. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a top level view of kind of how you have to work with the API, how Search Console works, and how it samples and how you can go about using the API to get more data out of it. There's also the BigQuery export, which you sort of didn't cover in this video because it doesn't look back, it doesn't give you any historical data, but we can talk about that in a future video as well. Yes, so hopefully that's been helpful. As with all this stuff, if you need any help with the data warehousing, with the SEO side of it, please come to us. It's exactly the sort of thing we do every day. We help SEO and marketing teams build and manage data warehouses. We're excellent at exactly the sort of stuff you've seen in this video, getting all your data out of Search Console, managing your GA4, all of that sort of good stuff. So yes, hopefully this has been helpful, and we'll see you next time.